Hello, my name is Will Ballard, and I'm going to do my non-canonical gospel presentation over the infancy gospel of Thomas. So, a little bit of background on this gospel. Thomas actually wrote three gospels, apparently, and they're all kind of in different parts. So, there's two Greek gospel texts, an A and a B, and then there's one Latin text. And so the Latin text is what the infancy gospel is, and it's interesting because in our assignment, so when you look at the assignment, it has two versions of the Gospel of Thomas. One is the Gospel of Thomas, and one is the infancy Gospel of Thomas. And so what the Gospel of Thomas is it is a bunch of sayings that Jesus had, and the infancy Gospel of Thomas is more focused, I guess, on kind of the infancy, the childhood of Jesus. And so that's what we're going to talk about today in my video is the infancy Gospel of Thomas. One interesting thing about this gospel is that it's about the childhood of Jesus. So if we look at the four, I guess, gospels that made it into the biblical narrative, they don't really talk about the childhood of Jesus. They more so hone in and focus on the 3 years of ministry that Jesus did as he was older and as he called his disciples. And so it's interesting to read this gospel and read about the childhood of Jesus, but it's also interesting because it doesn't really portray the same Jesus that we see in the biblical text. And so what I mean by this is that how this gospel presents Jesus is that of somebody who is just off the cuff. Like if somebody does something wrong to him or says something wrong to Jesus, he just goes away and rebukes them and essentially puts them to death. We see it more than one time. We see it 3 or 4 times inside of this gospel that there is somebody who does something that Jesus doesn't see as right, kind of does something against Jesus or wrongs Jesus in a way, and we see Jesus cast kind of rebuking and hatred towards that person and killing them. And it's crazy to see this version of Jesus because it doesn't align, it doesn't match up with the love and compassion version of Jesus that we see in the biblical text. We also see Jesus in this text as compassionate every now and then. He's compassionate towards one of his friends who falls out of a 2-story building and is killed, and he shows compassion towards him by resurrecting him and calling him back to life. And so we see those kind of instances there where Jesus kind of shows compassion and shows love towards people and towards various things, where he performs miracles for the good of other people. But it's actually not kind of the, I guess, central focus of this text. It's more along the lines of the kind of rebuking and the killing that Jesus does that is kind of central to this text. For instance, when Thomas opens up his gospel, he begins by telling a story about how Jesus was playing in this brook and that these waters flowed into pools and he made them straight, he made them clean, and he took soft clay and created kind of I guess channels for them that we would call today channels, and it says that a Jew came because it was the Sabbath day. He was playing on the Sabbath day, and a Jew came and basically kind of took a stick and destroyed his channels and accused Jesus of not upholding the Sabbath because the Sabbath was supposed to be holy, and Jesus kills him. Jesus rebukes him and gets angry and says to him, and I quote this from the gospel, "O evil, ungodly, and foolish ones, what hurt did the pools and waters do thee? Behold, now also thou shalt be withered like a tree, and shall not bear leaves, neither root nor fruit. End quote. And it says that straight away, he was withered and he was killed. And so it's almost as though this gospel is portraying Jesus as somebody who just does things off the cuff, off of random acts. When somebody angers him or somebody does him wrong, something that he doesn't like, Jesus automatically just casts a spell on him and casts a mean rebuking on him, and he just gets killed. And so it's almost obsolete to what the biblical gospels preach as far as Jesus being compassionate and loving. And so the second question on our list of questions is how does the gospel present the disciples and discipleship? In all honesty, it doesn't, because this gospel is not focused on an older Jesus, which calls disciples and calls those to him to be fishers of men. That sometimes he refers to it as. This gospel doesn't focus on that. This gospel focuses on the infancy of Jesus. And of course, there are a few times where Joseph tries to take Jesus to be mentored and discipled, and a couple times Jesus doesn't like this person and kills the people that he disciples. Finally, at the end of Thomas's gospel, Jesus finds somebody who he is willing to be taught by and willing to accept his teaching. And so I don't know kind of like what is going on here, because it's totally different than what the biblical text has said anything about Jesus, and it's totally obsolete to what I guess it portrays Jesus as. And if we're relating it to the canonical gospels, to the gospels inside the biblical text, it doesn't relate. It doesn't relate really at all, except for the few miracles that Jesus does for the good of people and out of compassion for other people, because Jesus is killing people. We don't see in the biblical text at any time Jesus kills somebody, even when Pontius Pilate was trying to kill Jesus. He let it happen, and he underwent the hurt and the pain that had to go, and the death that was later involved with it. He could have killed those people. He could have rebuked them and cast them down and make them wither away and make them shrivel up and die, but he didn't. And so it doesn't really relate at all to the canonical gospels. It's almost on an island of its own of how it portrays Jesus.